Hey Shannon, I'm so excited to have you on another episode of Get Real and Own Person podcast. I'm Megan Morris Garzon, and I'm really excited to have a wonderful woman with me today, Shannon Kinney. She's founder of Dream Local Digital. So, Shannon, thanks for being here. Feel free to introduce yourself, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. My name is Shannon Kinney. I'm the founder and client success officer at Dream Local Digital. And we have helped more than 90,000 businesses nationwide to market themselves online.
That's amazing. Awesome. And that is definitely a need today, to keep that marketing going. I know it well from all angles, right? Um,
Indeed.
yes. And so today we're going to kind of back up to when you launched your career and then got to this point where you built your own agency. So today we'll talk about following your instincts, building with conviction, and then seeing what happens.
Great.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Just to jump into our first question, when you look back, what did you actually notice or see early on that other people around you might have not noticed in terms of opportunity?
Yeah. So my career started, geez, 30 plus 40 years ago, actually. I'm totally dating myself. And my
You look
first
great.
thank you. My first big moves were I was involved in the internet in the late 90s. And
Mm,
so Dream Local Digital is my third nationally scaled startup. And the ones I did before then started in the late 90s. And I think for me, what I saw early that other people around me didn't see was that I really felt like how people got news and information and made purchases was just going to radically change. And so I had been working at newspapers and helping local businesses to get the word out about what they did and what they had going on. And I really specialized in working with car dealers. I had a ton of car dealer clients and I loved helping them sell cars. And early on, when I heard more about the internet, I just started drawing ideas about how people would change how they bought cars. So I was
mhm.
fortunate enough to be in a space that ended up growing a lot.
Yeah, I sure did. You were right. And it's funny because I feel like, I mean, I'm trying to find these opportunities in my own life, and I feel like a lot of people are kind of just like following the breadcrumbs of where they're at, where they see something that they could latch onto or learn from, and then going with it, right? So back when you were working in the car dealership and what made you feel like I need to trust my instinct and go with this internet wave and this has true potential? Like, was there something that you just trusted your gut? You were
Yeah.
smart enough to understand how things worked? Like, can you talk through that?
I I just felt like I could see something that other people weren't seeing. And the more I looked into it, the more like I could just feel it inside my body, if that makes sense. Like I just
Mm,
knew. And as I'm working with car dealers and realizing, oh, every car has a unique number. Well, that means I could like put it into a computer. Like I just knew there was a way to get it done. And, as I was really brainstorming these ideas, I was lucky enough to come across a few other people. The internet was a very quiet place then. Like then it was like listservs, which really was a
uh-huh.
lot kind of like Reddit is now, right? They were these
Yeah.
little communities of people talking on a niche topic. And I happened to be in one with a few other people in Chicago who were also thinking car dealers needed to be on the internet. And we met each other and, cars.com was born. So I think
Nice.
what I can say is now there's so much content out there. It's so different. What you're experiencing today is so different than what I experienced then, in that I had time and space to really develop my conviction and
Mhm.
develop my ideas and then find unique people who also had those ideas. And today there's so much content out there being thrown at you every day that
Yeah.
it's easy to be overwhelmed in other people's ideas. You can find like-minded people so easily, which is wonderful, but it also means your voice may seem quiet or things are more noisy. And so, like I said, I just had this whole full body yes experience about it
Cool.
and wasn't embarrassed that my ideas were different.
That's really admirable and cool that you just felt it and you said, "This is worth going after. I'm gonna connect with the right people." You found like-minded individuals, and you're so right that today, I mean, I've been experiencing it building my own social presence and trying to get
Mhm.
my own ideas out there daily, weekly, just keep going because there's so much that we're inundated with and it's noisy and to
Mhm.
break through is a challenge.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting that you thought, years back when you were at that phase, you had a bit more time to kind of let those ideas marinate a bit more and not
Mhm.
just rush onto throwing them out there and seeing what stuck. Um, so when you were kind of um, investigating and exploring the communities online and connecting with folks, when was it that um, you launched cars.com and when was it that you felt like, okay, I'm really building momentum here. I feel like I'm in my flow and I understand where this path is taking me. Was there a moment that you can recall?
Yeah. So I was invited to fly to Chicago to meet with a couple of individuals from the Chicago Tribune who were also trying to solve this problem and had a lot of ideas. And the minute we started talking, like, I'm such a small town Maine girl. Like, I showed up, with my little business suit, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm in Chicago."
Yeah.
And these men start talking to me and they said, "Well, have you really thought through the idea?" And I like reach into my purse and whip out these big drawings that I had. And they were like,
Oh,
"Oh my
wow.
God, check please. Like, we got to get out of this restaurant."
Wrap it up.
And it's like when I saw them start to get excited about something that literally no one else I knew even understood what I was doing, like, then I really was excited, and I
Cool.
felt like, "Oh, this isn't it." First of all, it's not just me thinking about solving this problem, there's other people, and we could really make this happen together, like, this is
Yeah.
really possible, and so that was a big moment for me, but, you know, throughout my career, I've had other moments like that where you just feel like you're in flow, to your point,
Yeah.
and positive things are putting themselves in front of you, and I think the key is being self-aware enough to see those things
Yes.
and recognize them and seek flow when you don't have it. Cars was definitely a big moment for me, but I've had several startups since where, that switch, flipping that switch really made the difference.
I think you are 100% right that it's about being self-aware enough to identify, yes, I'm onto something, I'm gonna trust it, and I'm going to get other people on board. And that is like this inner confidence that I'm curious, did you always have that from a young age? Because here you are drawing things on a piece of paper and bringing it to present. Like that takes some gut and
Yeah.
trust in yourself. So how
You
did
know,
you build
I
that?
I think it's easy for me to say I've always had it. But in reality, I was fortunate enough to be passionate about a sector that was nascent.
Mm,
And and so I was a young woman in her early 20s from Maine. So you couldn't get more unlikely to show up in power rooms with people in the auto industry, right?
right.
But because of that, career-wise, I've always had that confidence, because I knew I had evidence that what I was doing was the right thing. Personally, I haven't always had that confidence, and I think even there's moments, owning a startup where it's such a roller coaster, we all have low moments where we're
I
like,
feel you.
"What am I doing?" Like,
Like bring it to the ground. I'm done.
yeah, yeah, so I think it's about, for all of us, no matter what stage you're at, it's really about listening to your inner voice and valuing, recognizing that you have value that you're bringing to the table. And if you
Yeah,
feel like you're at a place where you aren't bringing value to the table, like that's the real question, right? It's being curious inwardly about why someone feels that is. And maybe it's not the right place or the right time. Um,
right.
but I think I was fortunate that, a nascent industry is a great place for a young person to really grab on and run.
Yeah. Do you think that's why you found it so exciting because it was nascent? Or because thinking of this young 20-something girl from Maine in the auto
Yeah.
industry. So what made you feel like it seems like there was a fire lit under you to go for
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Where did that come from?
I had spent years, working in newspapers. Like, I started
Right.
working at the daily newspaper in my town when I was 17, and I worked in the advertising department. It was part of a work study, with school, and then I got a couple internships, and I went to college for marketing and advertising, and
We have
so
a very similar background.
yeah, so it was my industry, and when the internet came, car dealers were where a lot of our money came from, and
Yeah.
so I was paying attention to them. First of all, I do love cars, and I still obsess about cars. But it
Okay.
was
Do you have any cool
also
cars of your own?
yes, yeah, I still use. I just got my daughter's car on Cars.com like 8 months ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah, I get really nerdy about especially Mopar cars, but that's a whole nother podcast. Um,
Cool.
but I think it's about, really, for me, I could see that massive transformation was going to rip apart the industry I had been in.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't just that it was something new. I felt like if I don't get a handle around this right now, then my whole world is going to change. And
Right.
ironically, I still speak on stages of media conferences. In fact, I've got three coming up in the next 8 weeks where I have to
Nice.
explain to them, hey guys, digital is a thing.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
it's, 28 years that I've had to have a couple of these slides, and that's unfortunate. I started Dream Local Digital to help media figure that out. And it's unfortunate that they still haven't figured it out because, since I started Dream Local, there are 700 less newspapers in the United States. There
Yeah.
are, only really 3 companies that control the majority of television in the US, and radio is rapidly consolidating, with 2 going into receivership, 2 big group companies going into receivership this quarter. So,
Okay.
it I could see that in the late '90s was going to happen, and so most of the
Mhm.
startups I've been involved with since were, trying to help that situation or help guide consumers. If you're not gonna buy it in the classified ads in the newspaper, how are you gonna find cars, real estate, jobs,
Yes.
small
I
businesses?
mean, that makes total sense that you understood the industry you're in was going to change inevitably, and it did, and it still is. And
Yes.
so believing digital is a thing early on, and then just still 20 something years later, still speaking about that and trying to convince folks. So I have a lot of questions on all of this, but, um, you know, first of all, how did you get to that point where you built your other startups and while you were doing so, still running into this idea that people weren't bought in and that you still
Yeah.
had to convince and push that forward as you're still doing today.
Yes. Yeah. I after Cars, I went to Silicon Valley with one of our biggest investors, which was a newspaper group called Knight Ridder, and
Mhm.
I built a lot of companies for them, tons of companies. Like we
Cool.
launched real estate, homes, all these national plays. We launched a news network that actually was the really debuted on September 11th, unfortunately, but the power of being able to share photographs, content really fast between Philadelphia, Washington, New York was just so powerful.
Oh,
And
wow.
then we invested in companies like LinkedIn and Netscape and I saw the first pitches of Google and Excite and Lycos. So I was
What a
out there
time.
when so many huge things were happening and was
Yeah.
involved in a lot of those conversations. And so for me, that was just groundbreaking excitement. I was at a time in my career where I was working 100 hours a week and would have worked more if I physically could have, and I loved every second of it. And
That's
now
awesome.
then I decided it was time to start my own thing, and so 17 years ago, I started Dream Local Digital with the intention that newspaper, radio, TV, they didn't have a solution to bring social media or websites to small businesses, and so I thought I would
Mhm.
fill that gap,
Yep.
and for many years, we were really great at that, and that's how we hit 90,000 customers. It's not just me as a salesperson, like, I've got
Mhm.
people all over the US that are helping small businesses and the work comes to Dream Local. But the fact that so many media companies have been very slow to adopt it, very slow to understand that they are losing relevance every day with readers, viewers, advertisers,
Mhm.
listeners. Um, you know, I do think I'm almost at the point where there's not many more conferences I can go explain that to. I have a few.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing all you people that I'm going to see in the next few weeks. But I do think I'm starting to come to a place where um, I'm more interested in having conversations with people who are open-minded and can see change happening.
Yeah, that makes more sense that you're aligned with the more open-minded, forward-thinking folks. But it's still great that you've been speaking and spreading the word and helping a number of people in the process, I'm sure.
Right. Well,
So
journalism matters, like news and getting
yes,
news and information from credible sources
yes,
matters to people in today's world more than ever.
yep.
But if they can't find revenue models to support it, then you're out of luck, really.
And I actually love this because it's like you believe in journalism and love journalism and you came up in journalism and I'm the same way. And so how do we ensure that you're still getting that, you know, in an ethical way and that it's a business can still run and companies aren't going under because of the changes, right? So
Right.
I think it's a very responsible thing that you're going for. Um,
Yeah, it went from being my business model to now I really look at it as tithing. Like, I'm
oh
just
yeah.
trying to help. I'm giving
Yes.
back.
I love that. Yeah, that's important. And
Mhm.
so you were successful and doing so many exciting things in the midst of so many big things happening with the internet and all of the startup culture, especially in Silicon Valley. And so when you decided to start your own thing, what were some like where were you in your life? What really sparked that? How did you feel? Like why did you know that it was time for that?
So, really, 2 events happened within, like, a 60-day span. One was I concluded a project that had been going on for several months at Google where we were building AdWords, right? So now if you all the little Google ads that you see, um, and so I was wrapping that project up and we were seeing how much money it was making, and it took off right away, and millions and millions of dollars were coming in, and we were celebrating and excited. But I also saw that a lot of the feedback that was coming in, a lot of the small businesses were struggling. Like, the tools were fantastic, but they're not marketers, so they'd be like, how
Yeah.
do I publish even though the button says publish? And I just could
Yeah.
see that small businesses really need somebody in the middle here. Like, they
Mhm.
really need somebody in the middle, and Google's like, "We're a software company, we are not an agency." And so that was sort of rattling around in my head, and then, early the next month, I had to give a speech, to the Newspaper Association of Canada, and we had, I don't know, 800 people in the room or so, and I'm up on the stage, and I'm explaining, "This is going to disintermediate you." Right? Google's AdWords are launched. There's a couple of these companies that, like Twitter. Facebook, they're pre-revenue, but they are going to launch similar platforms, and this is going to disintermediate you. So you
Mm,
need to go out and like really develop strong relationships with these advertisers and say, I'll help you with Google AdWords. And I looked out into the room and saw, you know what? None of these people are going to do anything. Like, they're not gonna do it. But I was a highly requested speaker, and, like, questions would come for hours, like, they were curious, but
yeah,
they clearly weren't gonna take action, and it was
interesting.
I had so many of those. And so, I decided that I was going to take on a few clients myself so that I could come up with some case studies and data, right? So instead of
Yeah,
me saying, "Hey, it's coming," I could say, "Out of these 10 small businesses, here's what they say they want," right? And so I went
yes.
back to my house, took on a few clients, and all of a sudden, then it was 20 clients, and then it was 30
Wow.
clients, and then it was like, "You know what? I just gotta turn this into a business,"
Yeah,
get it out of my speaking business and into it needed real structure. And so Dream Local was born,
cool.
because I was trying to prove a point.
Yes, I love that. And you were adamant and you said,
Yeah,
"These people need help. I know they're not gonna take action themselves. I can help." It makes
that's
total
right.
sense. And then you proved it. It wasn't just a hypothesis. You said,
Right.
"Let's work with a couple." And so how did it then grow to 20? Was it all connections you had, word of mouth?
Yeah. Once one small business saw me at a chamber of commerce, "Oh, you can do Google Ads? Great. I need a website. Great. I need Google Ads." And so I was like, "Oh, sure I can help. Sure I can help." And initially I'm thinking, "Oh, this is my study is going to have 5 roofers in it. Yay."
Yeah.
Then when it got to 20, I had to start hiring people and recognized, "Oh, this is a lot more than a few slides."
Yeah.
And so then I went to work building the infrastructure to support scale,
Yes.
and instead of telling the newspapers or TV stations that they needed to figure out how to do this, I said, you sign on the dotted line and I'll do it. I'll do it for you.
Love it.
And that's how our white label program was born in
And
2009.
you knew those folks were curious,
Yeah.
but they just needed that extra bit of help from you.
Yeah, they couldn't possibly figure out a scalable business model in it. They could barely figure out how to sell, and honestly, the selling part is still the biggest gap for them. No matter how much sales training I create or leads we generate, they'll say, "It's so much more complicated than just selling print." For 28 years, that's what they've been
Yeah.
saying. Sure,
Right.
it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
So
and
how
and let's go,
and let's
but
change that. Yeah.
we've had months where I've had hundreds of salespeople selling Dream Local and, that are at radio, TV, or newspaper, and I personally am out selling all of them combined, and it doesn't mean, I'm superhuman, it means I accept that it's more difficult, and I do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You accept it and you take it on
Yeah.
because you
Yeah, no
can, and you're
kidding.
genuinely helping these businesses.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, this seems like just such a common scenario that so many people are facing every single day still. And so you said you set up Dream Local to scale and you share and teach and work with folks to set up a scalable system. For someone that has no clue where to start, like what would you say are the key elements to setting up a scalable model?
It's a great question because so often I'll say things like set up for scale and people don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
I had been fortunate enough, with cars being the first one, and then 6 or 7 others in between. You have to build operations. A lot of people, let me step back. Many people create first a job for themselves.
Yeah.
And then they write some things down when they're gonna get a VA or a junior helper, and then they write a few more things down when they're gonna hire someone. When you're building a business for scale, you're starting to create those operations assuming you're gonna have 10x or 100x clients than you have at that moment.
Yeah.
So
A
so
vision.
yeah, you it's easy to say if I'm doing Google AdWords for one roofer, then that's like 20 minutes of my time. I obviously knew the system because I helped build it. So, but I said, okay, um, what are the keywords? What are the steps I'm taking to make this roofer successful? What research am I doing? What are the steps I'm taking? And I need to document every one, how long it should take, and then go get 5, 10, 20 more roofers
Uh-huh.
and run them through the same process. Right. And I think that's that's, I think, a real test of a scalable business model. And if it doesn't work, if it breaks down, typically the first breakdown is the person who's the founder thinks they're the only person who's qualified to do a lot of the work.
Mm,
And when that is the breakdown, then either, the business isn't scalable or the issue is you. Um,
yes.
I was the 5th paid employee at Dream Local. I was not number 1. I was
Wow.
the first one to be working there, but I was not the first one to get paid because I recognized to scale my model, I wasn't creating a job for myself. I needed to get people in here to work in the business while I built the business. And so,
That's huge.
yeah, the business could afford to pay me once we hit person number 5.
That just shows that you're always thinking ahead. Like you said, how can this grow 10x, right?
Mhm.
And then what will it take? So it's not just, I need a job. I'm going to start a business.
Right.
It's let's actually build this. And you were always kind of working on your what you called your experiment, right? Of we have roofers. Let's run it several times to see what
Mhm.
actually works. Then you know what works for roofers after
Right,
doing it time and time again
right,
and kind of like seeing the tests and the data and moving from there.
right.
Um, so I just feel like that's something a lot of people just don't naturally think that way. And
Right, well, it's because you come up with a great idea and you're really passionate and you just jump into execution mode. And
mm,
execution mode matters, right? Like that's how you learn if this is really something you love and really something customers want. I'm not dissing execution, but you
yeah.
have to quickly recognize like what do I want this to look like, 1 year from now, 5 years from now? What income do I expect to make or what revenue do I want to hit? And then what's it going to take to get there? For me, the
Mhm.
other reason this matters is customer satisfaction. I
Yep.
could make that first roofer super happy by taking great care of him, but not if I want to make any money. Like I needed to understand that balance between customer care and profit. And then I saw really fast that the way to profit is to be able to get really smart and be able to offer it to a lot of businesses would have let me keep my prices down.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm a person and I want to make X amount a year, so I need 6 clients." To do that.
Yep.
And that's a job, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's the opposite of scale.
Yeah, that's really important about
Mhm.
understanding how to balance because, yes, customer satisfaction is extremely important, but you have to take care of more than one business at a time to grow and meet those goals. And I think maybe folks, like you said, have this idea they're excited about, they want to go, but you were saying, think ahead. So, how does someone balance the idea of kind of like their dreams and like what they would love and desire to be the outcome versus being realistic with finances and the choices they're making? How do you balance those things?
Well, there's really 2 things I can think about to answer your question. I think the first one is if you're really passionate about a category, an industry, problem to solve, if there's a bigger company already doing it, either work there or study them a lot.
Yeah. Ooh, that's
I
good.
was really lucky that a lot of the lessons that I learned were working at a bigger, safer company, right? And,
Yes.
even though we were startups, we were incredibly well funded startups and, with health benefits. So, So,
Nice.
I was able to learn a lot then, and I call it packing my backpack. Like, what do I need
Ooh,
before I do this myself? What
that's
contacts do I
big.
need? What should my network look like? What, skills and abilities, what do I need before I wanna jump off a cliff and do this myself? And then
Mm,
when you're ready to think about doing it yourself, like, you have to it's not so often people think about their bank account and how much they want in it, and then they work backwards. When really where you need to start is where a business would start, which is, profit, bottom
mhm,
line profit. So, what will it take to execute and give a customer this dream I have? And how much will be left at the end? And then you build your income goals from that. Too many are
mm.
looking at the top line revenue and so many small business owners are struggling in a constant feast or famine because of that element.
Yeah, very, very good point. And bottom line is where you should focus for sure. And
Yeah.
I loved what you said about packing your backpack before you go and jump off a cliff. So just curious, what were some of the key pieces when you packed your backpack before launching Dream Local? What did you have prepared and what did you know you could work with?
Yeah, I spent 18 months packing my backpack,
Okay.
and the biggest thing I did was my network. So
Yes.
I opened every door I could open with the company's name I had, which is a lot easier to open than, "Hi, I'm Shannon. I started my thing on myself." Like, I,
Yeah.
built relationships with people. I built out my network. I served a lot while I could and did all kinds of favors for people, and I had a really robust network, before I
Awesome.
left. I also, on a silly note, I had this amazing health insurance. I went to my dentist and said, "You have 9 months. What is gonna break in the next, like, 10 or 15 years? What needs to be
You're
done?"
a planner.
Anything you need to do. And
I love
I
that.
had all kinds of preventative and proactive stuff done health-wise. I
Nice.
went on a vacation while I still had someone else. PTO is a hilarious thing when
Uh,
you own your own business.
I know.
I did PTO, but a lot of it was skills training. If I was curious about something, I learned about it then, so that I was really well prepared. And I met with our finance people because finance is not my comfort zone. And I said,
Yeah.
how are you analyzing profit? What do you look at? What would you think at if we're evaluating a deal? And, all those things I took with me when it was time to start my business. And um, it was an entirely different way of thinking about starting something with your own money. Like I remember one of my employees saying, "Why do I have to have this huge spreadsheet for these three projects?" And I was like, "Because those three are going to be 30, 50,
Yeah.
60. Like
Scale.
that's why."
Yeah, that's
That's
why.
why. And if I don't get it up to 30, I can't pay you. And then they'd be like, "Oh, I'll fill out
Right.
the spreadsheet." Uh, you know, so
Yeah.
so it's just a different way of looking at it. And I think anybody who's looking at their business needs to think about it with those eyes before they take the leap.
That is so helpful, and I'm learning a lot from this conversation as well. I have my own business and it's hard, like you said, and, I it just shows that you are the type of person that has such due diligence, and I think that is
Mm.
huge. Even from a health perspective,
Yeah.
thinking ahead, and then you think ahead for your clients. Having a spreadsheet to grow to 30,
Mhm.
um, just that mindset of you are thinking ahead, planning for the outcome you're intending, and
Mhm.
just getting everything in place so that it could actually work before you
Yeah.
go.
And even if you don't, like, even if your brain is resisting it, one of the ways you can look at it is customer satisfaction. Because if you don't think that way and you're lucky enough to get 20 customers, you'll start falling down all over the place. And
Yeah.
typically, businesses scale or hire an employee after at least one customer is pissed off,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And so you don't that's not how you grow a business, right? You customers are hard to get for most of us. It takes
Yes,
work
that's
to get a
true.
customer today, unless you're like McDonald's. It takes a lot of work. And so
Yeah, yeah.
you want to make sure that you are prepared, and that your team is prepared to make those customers happy and feel the joy you feel when you think about your business. And so
Mhm.
whenever I have one of my clients that we're mentoring resist that step, I'll be like, you want them all to be as happy as customer number one, two, three, so you've
Yeah,
got
it's
to.
kind of like urge your customers to think of their future selves and what will make them happy. Um,
Yes,
and I
yes.
another thing you said, but getting clients is hard, and you had built your robust network, which is also hard. And so,
Mhm.
um, what are some for anyone in actually doing that right now? I think a lot of people can relate. What are just some easy ways to have effective outreach or to like you said, you led with your company name, like just things like that. Are there any hacks
Mhm.
you can think of for folks to get more conversion rate?
Well, I think first when it comes to building your network, when I meet people, I say yes. I don't think in my head, oh, what can this person do for me? Let me look them up first and see if they know anyone. Like when I met you and learned about what you were
I was
working
just gonna
on
say.
and you had a podcast, I'm like, yes, right? Yes.
Yes.
And of course I went and I'm like, I better listen to this thing. I'm excited. But you just say yes because
Love that.
and you offer help first
Yes.
because your
And you've done that
network.
for me.
Yeah, will constantly it will come back. It will always come back,
Yes.
or, um, they'll tell someone else, and it's just I mean, of course, this is just how I am personally, but it's because it's easy for me to be that way because over and over again, these things pay off, and yesterday
Yes.
yesterday afternoon, I had somebody put a sales call on my calendar. I looked at the name and I'm like, I know one person with that name. And I get on the call and it was somebody that worked for me in Silicon Valley, which was a long
Oh,
time ago. Now he's got a startup and he's like, I need help with marketing and I want this and this. And so that's somebody that has been in my network for, 25 years. And
yeah.
now something's happening and they think of me. And so
Yes.
I think you just say yes. And
Mm,
even when you're busy and you don't have time, you do it anyway because you just never
yeah.
know. You just never know.
I have been thinking of the same thing the last couple of weeks in particular, and I've been saying yes to things. I've been introducing myself as much as I can and staying connected and opening doors. And like you
Yes.
said, just like do that extra bit of work, and someone will remember you down the road when the time is right. Make that introduction, and
Yeah.
they'll think of you. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just so happy you did that for me too, because we get to have
Of
this great
course.
conversation. And we're actually we're local with each other, and we're going to a local women's networking event or a conference actually in
Yes.
2 days. So we'll meet a
Yes.
lot of other folks there and just, share. And like it's kind of like karma. It's like be kind and it'll come back.
It'll come
And
back.
I
And
truly believe that.
you also asked about conversions. And I think
Uh-huh.
you combine building your network with staying in touch with or on top of mind with your network.
Yes.
So I think it's those two pieces. So, I meet you at an event and my natural inclination was the next morning, I'm at my desk and I connect on LinkedIn. I looked at your website. I listened to your first podcast episode that I found. And then I think of, or is there anything I can do to add value to Megan today? Like anything. And you had a couple questions and I answered them. And then, I'm tracking the people I'm meeting, so that I am adding value and staying in touch with them. And, when I started, like people are going to laugh listening to this, but LinkedIn was the third nationally scaled startup I helped, but there was no LinkedIn when I started, right? And
Yeah.
there was no Facebook or when I started. Now
Yeah.
these tools exist and they're so easy to,
Yes.
to actually literally build your network. It's not a pile of cards in your desk somewhere. And um,
Exactly.
you just got to take the time and recognize that taking that time is an important part of the network building. The conversions start happening the more disciplined you are and supportive you are about staying in
Mhm.
touch and top of mind.
Yes, and genuinely offering service and help. Genuinely, because you did that for me, and I recognized right away we met, we enjoyed meeting, and we had a great conversation. You followed up with email, and you were open to
Mhm.
being connected. We are connected online, and then I now get your newsletter in my inbox, and I see your name, so you are top of mind for me, so you did it. And that's just I noticed that right away and respected it. So,
So, yeah.
I think that's a great example and great advice for anyone listening.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I everything you've said, I think kind of all comes back to trusting your instincts and moving with conviction.
Mhm.
And yes, it's doing your homework, being prepared, um, thinking about scale throughout all of it. But I think that you were able to really you had the inner toolkit to
Mhm.
go for it and keep it going years and years later. So, that's just really awesome and inspiring. But
That's
thank you
great.
for sharing all of these tips and, just sharing more about your personal story. I've really enjoyed learning more about it, and, we'll be continuing the conversation for sure.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, take care.